Genie grind, I wish I'm getting rich, huh? Remember when I said I hit a lick, huh? I don't really wanna fuck the bitch, what? Willie went and made another hit, okay, like Prada on my motherfucking kid, huh? Louis on my motherfucking hip, huh? Curry how I dunk, no switch, hey, fucker gonna fuck that bitch, hey, if you ain't gon' fuck with me, you a dumb fuck, put up a hit up for that one punch, look at my bank and I'm getting dumb rich, and I'm gonna count it up till 100.
Hello world, I'm What If Study, and today we are doing What If Bakugo was the main character. Now we'll get shortly into how that is possible. But first we are going to start off on a snowy day. A creek with some branches and floating logs stuck in the ice. A frozen world. The two children playing in the snow seem to be transfixed on the icy snow caps that crept around the pond that they used to play in all the time. "You should go in," Bakugo shouts at Deku, even though he's only 2 feet away. "I'm not gonna do that, dumbass. You can't even use your quirk in there," as Bakugo says. "What are you talking about? I can use my quirk anywhere. I ain't gonna let some stupid water tell me that." As then he jumps down to the water, his stature still not that of a grown teen. He slips and then catches himself right before the ice could hit his head, as a young Deku had held onto his jacket just close enough to stop him before he was able to tumble. Bakugo brushes himself off as he stands in front of the lake. Cold breaths of air escape his warm, weathered suit. His matching one with Deku's symbolized their relation this year's. It was calm. "When do you think our moms are going to see us again?" "Didn't they say for a week? Come on, Deku. We're going to be men soon. We have to be strong." I can let some stupid water beat me. As Bakugo puts his hand inside of it and tries to flick his fingers a little bit, trying to cause anything, maybe a spark like he used to, but a frustrated look crosses his face. He brings out his hands as he lights up his hands from outside, almost 2 feet away from the ice, blowing up a smart little chunk of it, which floats its way over to the other side of the bank. "There you go, a clearing." "Out of breath, eh?" As Bakugo says, like, "Shut up! I'm not out of breath. Some stupid ice cannot beat me." As he picks up a piece of the ice and kind of throws it up in the air and then catches it. Its cold surface seeping into his skin as it sort of molds and stops him from being able to explode again. Stupid water. As Deku puts his feet inside the water, he shivers, but slowly allows them to seep further in. His legs now inside of the pond. A smile grows on his face as Bakugo sits next to him, afraid. "Afraid? What are you talking about? I wouldn't be." "Fine. Yes. I am kind of afraid of water. It's the only thing that can counter me." "Well, that and everything else more powerful than you." "Shut up. Soon I'll be strong enough to destroy anything in my way, including stupid water." He causes many explosions in his hand, causing like ripples throughout the whole bank. Deku puts his hand in the pond and splashes it at him, saying, "See, your weakness. You'll never be the strongest hero if you're so weak to water." As he says, "Take it back. I'll always be the strongest hero." "No, you're wrong. I'll be the strongest hero." "What are you talking about? You don't even have a quirk. As one of their typical rants starts to bout, they move over to sort of the port of this local pond that empties out into the lake, then the ocean. Once they start getting closer to the dark dock, their meaningless battle starts to turn into an uproar. Deku, you can't become a hero if you have no quirk. I'll do it anyways. The fuck? How? I just will. You imbecile! If I hit you one time and you just go down, you'll just die on the battlefield. You'll die. I won't. How? I just don't have the answers right now, okay? I'll make it work. Deku. Dosh. What? As then Bakugo, out of a sense of pure sort of rage in that moment, just kicks Deku in the stomach. A breath of air exhales out of Deku's mouth as he misses the butt end of the dock and is immediately thrown into the pond. A breath of air just completely is gone from Deku's lungs. As he slowly sinks, he is taking gulps and gulps of water as he starts to claw his way back up. As he's all, I'm only 9. How I don't know how to swim. As he's trying and yet he's making no ground. All he feels is water just gulping down as his body starts to freeze up. All of his blood starts to drain from his hands and his legs as it all correlates into his main center, trying to breathe more, trying to get more, and yet he's unable to breathe. He just keeps drinking and drinking. I wasn't thirsty. And then all he can see is a face. Back up at the top of the pond, Bakugo had stripped off of his shirt and jumped into the pond. The freezing water hits his skin, reflecting off, destroying all of his quirk. But he continues to try to use it on his feet to try to propel him forward. In these moments of quick thinking, he just snaps and says, Deku! As he just bursts down to the bottom of the pond, more than 15 feet, grabbing onto Deku, who is already gone. His eyes are pale and water and just clear. The pupils of his eyes dilated to the point where they're the size of his eyes, blackness and clear at the same time. The rest of his body floating there, full of water. He grabs onto the soggy exterior of Deku and drags him up to the surface. Although he was no grand swimmer himself, Bakugo at least knew how to. Bringing Deku up to the surface first himself, after all, he was barely on his last seconds of breath, too. When he rises to the surface, he drags Deku up, allowing his mouth to come to the surface, but he heard no gasp. He dragged Deku onto land, taking off all of Deku's clothes, thinking maybe it's hindering his breathing somehow, until he realizes that he's not breathing at all. He starts just doing something. Do something. He starts to think what to do. He tries to grab his phone, but would it be too late? It would be too late. As then he just bashes his hand down onto the chest of Deku. After all, he saw them do something like this in the movies. What was it called? CPR? But Deku was gone. He was crying as he bashed his hands down onto Deku's chest. Water seemed to flow out of his mouth endlessly, as his body seemed bloated, full, pumped. His eyes gazed over to Bakugo, lifeless. As men started to come in and take him, he still leaked as he was dragged away to the hospital. Bakugo shortly followed behind, staring down at his hands. As his mother stared at the doctor, but Bakugo heard nothing. What weakness is there of water if I want to be the strongest? As the days go by, but Bakugo doesn't really leave. He stays there in the room, at least mentally. He didn't know how to deal with death. The slow moaning and the sorrow-filled anchors down in the pond reflect in his head. He could hear Deku now, recounting his name, laughing and joking. He returned back to class. Although he wasn't suspected for murder, he knew he was one. I can't. He tells his mother one night that he can't take it going to school and seeing the empty seat. He can't see the rest of those people look at him again. He has to be something that they can recount. Something not considered a monster. Soon he finds out he can't escape that, as he joins a underground fighting club. At the age of 12, he started fighting on his own in the underground. Every single punch hardened his skin. He fought against animal-like fighters, most of them bruisers, but he fought well. Lucid like water, but struck like an explosion. Each time he learned more, gained more, thinking harder and better and faster. In that state of mind, his eyes would not be the fiery color they used to take hold of. His insanity from before was unlike this one. It was of a calm tide. One of his fights was against the king of the underground. A cape billowed by his sides but connected to his legs. A wrestler almost, a jaguar face mask, but upon further inspection it covered almost all. It was actually his face. The king of the jungle, they call me. Are you ready to rumble, kid? As this almost corny wrestler makes his entrance into the underground. Everyone cheering his name. King, 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 king. And who is this that has come to challenge me? A child? and now age of 15, Bakugo. A head covering soggy and his eyes covered by sunglasses so that no one noticed the lucid eyes that watched all around him. He recounted every single time he stepped in this ring as he prepped himself. He closed his eyes and grinned. It's funny to think I would actually maybe lose this time. Let's hope so, shall we? Don't be a disappointment now. As he's gotten used to shit-talking. As the king points at him saying, "You're a funny one. I like it. Come on, kid. Give me your best shot. I'll give you the first hit." As the king opens up his hands to both of his sides. Each tattoo of a rhinoceros on his right, a cheetah on his left leg, and a elephant on his left arm, all sort of glaring at him, tempting him to even try. Bakugo simply stared at him. His eyes did not move as he took off the glasses and stared him straight in the eyes. The king was put off a bit. He had fought so many fighters. He had even fought some pro heroes, including that bunny woman. Still couldn't convince her to make her stay. But I have defeated all who have come down here. And now, this kid wants to fight. Just before this, there was thousands of millions almost. Every single, illegal fighter was in on this, and their fans were also in on this. Bakugo was still standing there as his eyes scanned the surface of every single follicle on King's skin. And yet he stood there, doing nothing. Too scared, eh? As you hear 3, 2, 1, let the fight begin! As a bunny suit wearing Katsune sort of, throws the little flag into the ring. The king suddenly jets into position, activating the cheetah sigil on his left leg, activating what he calls cheetah speed, as he immediately dashes straight in front of Bakugo. In the blink of an eye, basically, this massive hulking man converts that force into a rhino charge, as a massive, just shoulder weight just bashes straight into Bakugo. His body seems to go limp, flipping over sideways, and yet it stabilizes itself right before it hits the wall. As all of the fans are staring down, looking at the explosion that had occurred from him hitting the wall. As King already starts sort of looking at the crowd saying, "Of course, just another newbie, all talk and no," as then pond size. Big bang! As then he clamps both of his hands together as the dust blows away from him, revealing Bakugo with a massive head injury, but holding on to his consciousness, and releases a explosion big enough to encompass the entire arena, which was about 40 feet by 40 feet. This explosion hits King dead on, without him having his guard up. As the dust settles, King is left in shambles on one of his knees. Sneak attack, eh, kid? Fine, you want to play like that? As then he brings his arms back up. Bring it on then, as he says, stampede. All of his animal tattoos all light up around him, causing a massive buildup of power. As he charges forward, elephant, take the lead. As then this elephant force starts to billow against Bakugo. However, Bakugo was exploding the dust around him, causing a sandstorm to whip up around him. The elephant force was enough to knock away all the dust, but it was about enough to do just that. As he comes in with a right hook aimed straight for Bakugo's jaw, Bakugo had his eyes closed. We see Bakugo on a porch. This porch leads out into a massive lake, connecting to the pond we saw earlier. Right off of his house, he sits on a lawn chair, staring out at the ocean. He picks up his feet as he settles them down onto the deck, barefooted. He was around 12 at this time. No, 10. He can't remember when. When he stared out into the ocean, he clamped both of his hands together and summoned every single fiber of his being. It was the least he could give for Deku. No, for himself. As he then puts his hands forward, releasing an explosion big enough that was just exactly as big as the one that he exploded inside the arena when he was 9. We then see him growing up. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and finally, when he was 15. His explosion was enough to destroy this pond. As then we resume back to his fight, as the massive hulking beast comes down with a hook to Bakugo's face. Bakugo causes an explosion on the tip of his face, directing the explosion straight towards the fist coming right at his face. This reflects the fist backwards, injuring his arm quite considerably. As the king looks over to his hand, flexes it a few times and sees the burn marks covering and stretching along his hand. You. As then just a snake-like way of maneuvering, he says, "Unleash the stampede!" As this seems to anger him so much that he releases every single blow that he knows. Snake-like, wolf fang, all different types, and yet they all seem to be reflected. A few of them get through and end up punching Bakugo in the stomach, causing him to release a lot of air. He falls down onto the ground on one of his knees, trying to recover his air as King stands victorious over his head. You stood a good chance, but unfortunately, I will always reign supreme. As he pats Bakugo on the head, and then immediately picks Bakugo up by the head, lifting him several feet off the ground, reaching the level of the king. After all, he's almost 8 foot tall, and Bakugo is maybe 5. Bakugo, Oh, please, speak up, child. Renounce your defeat. As King comes in a little closer to hear what he's saying. Lake-sized. As he's just like, what? As he looks down and sees both Bakugo's hands clamped together. You fool. This massive explosion aimed directly for the stomach of the king. cuts him in half as the entire arena is consumed, and part of the stands are too. Fortunately, those stands were cleared out a long time ago. They were busted up from a fight before between the king and Mimiko. The arena is completely destroyed, leaving only a crater with Bakugo basically laying down on the ground, who had used all of the sweat that he had gained inside of his hands and saved them up to the end of the fight. He rises up his fist weakly as he brings a smile to his face. Maybe I could be the best. As everybody cheers, suddenly an uproar just brings the energy all the way back up. This long-held silence was now gone, as they see the king basically soldered in half, as half of his body was blown off completely. He laid there dead from the explosion. But it is the way of the underground fighting tournaments. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry that I didn't have any music today. And yeah, just thank you for watching, really. I do appreciate it, and I hope that you can come back for the second one, which will be released in maybe a day or perhaps even today. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
Genie grind, I wish I'm getting rich, huh? Remember when I said I hit a lick, huh? I don't really wanna fuck the bitch, what? Willie when I made another hit, okay, like Prada on my motherfucking kid, huh? Louis on my motherfucking hip, huh? Curry how I dunk, no switch, hey, fucker gonna fuck that bitch, hey, if you ain't gon' fuck with me, you a dumb fuck, put up a hit up for that one punch, look at my bank and I'm getting dumb rich, and I'm gonna count it up till 100.